Let's just start super broadly. How does 7-Eleven think about culture?
Yeah, it's a good place to start. So, 7-Eleven is almost 100 years old. We were founded in 1927, so we'll be celebrating 100 years very soon. And we have a large footprint, so very ubiquitous brand and very multi-generational brand. So from our perspective, well, I'll just start by saying anytime I tell anyone I work for 7-Eleven, I get to hear 7-Eleven stories. Everyone has a 7-Eleven story. They used to go there after sports practice to get a Slurpee, or they, would ride their bikes. And so you hear that a lot. And I think just from a cultural perspective, or just from from that perspective, everyone has that story and everyone has that connection to the brand. But we also see that that's mostly Gen X. It's older millennials, and so we have to start to grow that same relevance with a younger audience, with more of a Gen Z audience. And so we have done that through passion points, and I think it goes back to what David from Collage was saying. Also understanding where we have permission to play and where we can do it authentically. And so we've really looked at, what are the fandoms or the passion points of our consumers that intersect with where we do have permission because of our brand and really understanding our brand. So I have some slides I'm going to share that will help to explain some of this. So we really focus on 4 key areas. It's car culture, and I'll explain that one a little bit more because that one may feel weird at first, but sports, music, and music is probably more aligned with our Slurpee brand than our 7-Eleven brand, but that's a big one for us. And then gaming. I mean, gaming just has a natural kind of snacking tie. So we really focus on those 4 key areas.
Great. Those are still relatively broad. So how do you figure out where to activate within those fandoms?
Yeah, they're super broad, and we do have to focus. So we think about 3 different things. The first is within that fandom, does it fit our role that we play in that fandom? And car culture is a good example of this. And we have to be really honest with ourselves because ideas or potential collaborations will come our way, and we're like, yes, we want to do it, but does it really fit? And car culture, we think of ourselves as lifestyle and aftermarket. That's where we fit. We do not fit into professional. We are not a performance brand when it comes to auto or to car culture, but we are lifestyle and aftermarket. And so we look at our fit and whether it makes sense. And then secondly, we look at the authenticity of it. I mean, is there a true connection to 7-Eleven or to Slurpee or to Speedway, which is another one of our brands? So we look for whether that connection exists and whether we can play authentically in that space. And then the last one is, does it have momentum? And we work with an agency partner that helps us actually measure momentum. And we define that as low volume, high velocity. So if it's high volume, high velocity, we're probably not going to really get much traction out of it. We're going to probably get kind of lost in that. And if it's low volume, low velocity, we're not going to get the momentum that we need to make it work. So at the end of the day, we say we want it to be unexpected, but we don't want it to be surprising. We want people to go, oh, that makes sense. I should have thought of that. Is really how it should come together.
So unexpected but not surprising makes me go back to car culture. Like, how did you get into that?
Yeah, so car culture is a fun one. I love talking about this one. About 4 years ago, we revamped our social strategy. And if you had looked at our Instagram grid prior to that, it was very product focused. There were very few 7-Eleven brand cues. You could have looked at it and not really known it was 7-Eleven. A lot of vendor product partners, in the feed, a lot of different colors that didn't really align with our brand. And so we actually deleted our Instagram feed. Chipotle had just done it. So we were like, it's okay, we can do it. And so we deleted it and we started over. And we said, let's look at what our fans are already doing. Let's see what they're already posting. And so we found a lot of pictures of cars in front of 7-Eleven stores. And we started to post them. So I'm going to show you the first one because I have it here. What did I do with my... Here we go, my clicker. Yeah, it's hard to carry all this. So this is one of the first posts that we had posted. It's just a white car in front of a 7-Eleven store. I don't even know what kind of car that is, but that's all it is. And you see comments like, more cars. And so we saw that a lot. And we were like, okay. And this also at the time was the most engaged social post I think we had ever had, which is crazy. And so we posted more cars. Another white car in front of a 7-Eleven. Like, it's not even that much different from the first one, but please, post more like this. And so we did, and we started to see a lot of traction. And then in late 2021, a TikTok user created a video of these posts and said, "Why is nobody talking about how badass the 7-Eleven Instagram account is?" And that TikTok actually went viral. And I don't use that word lightly. I hate the word viral, but it really gained a ton of traction. And within a day, we had gotten more followers than we had probably gotten in the previous 2 years. And we also had all of these car fans scheduling a car meetup, a national car meetup at 7-Elevens on November 5th. I remember the date because we were like, it's going to be interesting to see how this comes together. And the car culture just really embraced 7-Eleven, and 7-Eleven really embraced the car culture. And they love us because other people will kick them out of their parking lots, and we don't. We love them. So I have a video. That's what started to play that tells the story, I think, a little bit better. So I'll play that.
Awesome. So what do you think is next for 7-Eleven and car culture?
So one of the other really fun things we did last year is, we can look at data all day long, but we actually went out and met people in the car culture scene. So we went to LA, we went to Atlanta, and met people who spend their entire day, their entire lives ingrained in this culture. We went to car meetups. We spent a lot of time with a car photographer, so we got to go to garages. And actually, he's the car photographer for Jay Leno, so he knew a lot of cool stuff in LA. So that was a lot of fun. But just spent time with them, and it was amazing. I mean, by the end of the trip, I was like, looking at posts totally differently. I'm like, oh, that's the initial D car. Like, I don't even know. I didn't even know what that meant a week ago. So all of a sudden, we were able to speak their language and really understand what they thought was cool. There are some cars they do not want us to post, and we don't post them. So we really, really listen. We understand who they are, and we're really revamping kind of our visual identity around it. We're revamping, a lot of like our merch collection around it, just to make sure that it's something that's going to continue to resonate with them, and we'll continue to have those conversations with them.
That's awesome. So another activation that kind of caught fire for you guys was around football. Can you tell us a little bit about that? It's kind of my favorite.
Yeah, this is a fun one. And I think this one, from my perspective, goes to show what happens when you have the strategy in place, you have the infrastructure in place to be able to activate on these types of moments, but then also you have the team and the heart, because our team has a ton of passion for this work, and this next project was a huge passion project for a few of our team members. So in October, there is a wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, for those of you who might follow football, named Jamar Chase. And they had an especially rough game, and he was being interviewed after. And I think the journalist, asked him, do you feel like there's not enough space being created around you? And he said, nah, I'm open. I'm always freaking open. And so the next day, he posted a picture of a 7-Eleven in his Twitter feed, and just 7-Eleven. That didn't even spell it out, just 7-Eleven. And we were like, yes. So the woman who leads our sports marketing team and the woman who leads our 7 Collection merch team put a plan together within a few hours. And so by the following weekend, and actually this is the tweet that he did on the left. By the following weekend, we had replaced 7-Eleven with Jamar Chase on the front of a store. We had a merch line that we had created. He had already modeled it. We had content with him. He was posting the content, and he was wearing the 7-Eleven chain at the next game. So, and I think that was one of the pictures I had early on. But yeah, that one was really fun. And this is the merch line. You can see that we had launched again within about a week. So that was a way for us to just engage very quickly, but also really authentically. And again, kind of going back to those 3 criteria. I mean, this absolutely fit where we play and the role that we have within this fandom. It was incredibly authentic. No one else could have done this except for 7-Eleven. And, it definitely had momentum because it was very high velocity.
Yeah, I love that.
That was fun. I mean, just the media value we got out of this was pretty substantial. And so, we continue to look for these types of opportunities, but because we already have the structure in place, we're able to move on them very quickly.
Awesome. I guess all these things are really fun and cool and get everybody's attention, but at the end of the day, as marketers, we're trying to drive people in store. We're trying to drive to purchase. Like, how do you sort of tap into these fandoms? Sorry, I didn't mean to quote fandoms, and actually drive purchase?
Yeah, so the biggest way is that these are also all part of our shopper marketing activations. So we have 3 apps. We have the 7-Eleven app, which is really focused on our 7 rewards program, as well as mobile checkout, digital wallet, some of the other digital features you can use in store. Speedway has an app, and it's very similar. We have a Speedy rewards program. And then our 7 Now app is our delivery app. And so we really use these fandoms to connect to our customers, even through those apps and through our shopper marketing programs. So that could be creating experiential, one-of-a-kind, events or activations that they can be a part of when they come into the store and they choose to purchase participating products. But everything that we do really is wrapped around these fandoms, even from a conversion standpoint. And from an audience targeting standpoint, I think when we first started thinking about gaming and gamers a few years ago, we were thinking about channels like Twitch. We want to go to gamers, we got to be in Twitch, or we got to be here. And now it's like, no, gamers are everywhere. We can find, you can talk to them in other places and in other ways. It's really, they're an audience, it's not a channel. And so that's how we think about it from a conversion standpoint.
Got it. I was going to tell a Slurpee story because my mom was, are you going to talk about Slurpees? But you said it was older people, so I'm not going to tell that story anymore. But those are really the questions I had for you today. I wanted to open it up to the rest of the group and see if anyone had any questions for Marissa.
Hello. Hi, I'm Angela. I actually lead our growth efforts at Razorfish, which is a marketing transformation agency. It's really interesting as you talk about culture. I feel like 7-Eleven outside of the U.S. has such a strong following. Yeah. It's such a different, I would say, brand in international countries, especially in Asia. How, if at all, does that influence what you're doing in the United States? Do you have kind of an ambition or North Star or ways in which you were inspired by the culture phenomenon that is 7-Eleven in other countries?
Yeah. Well, so speaking of the Asian countries, we are obviously owned by a Japanese holding company. And so Japan is another market where we see a ton of car culture. And in fact, a lot of what we saw in the beginning was coming from Japan and from Korea and some of the other Asian markets. And we've seen more of it pick up here in the US. So it's kind of helped to perpetuate that specific fandom. But we also look to them, too, to influence our strategy more from a food perspective. And, I mean, people who go to 7-Eleven in Japan, they're like, I'm going to go eat at 7-Eleven, right? And so we are actually building commissaries here that are based off the Warabeya commissary, which is the Japanese commissary. And so we hope to create a lot of that same, type of fandom here, but doing it through taking a lot of the strategies they've put in place and implementing them here. It's a lot of test and learn, too, into those things. But, but I would say the closest tie is definitely the car culture. And then there's a lot of other, fun things that come out of it and activations we can do in social to kind of see what works. But, yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, Max here from Promo Republic. So you've told that you're connecting with the communities, specific communities like car owners and so on. So, and you're a pretty big organization, active in the whole states and abroad. Is there any way you can actually connect with the local communities, like taking into account the local context, like I know local festivals, some local organizations? Is there actually possible to do that as a big company at scale? So do this local social media marketing.
Yeah, it's a good question. So one example of that, I would say, is Pride Month. And we really lean into Pride Month with our Slurpee brand. And that's in our Slurpee channels. And that allows us to kind of scale the local activations. So being at different Pride parades, doing New York City, but also being in San Diego. And it allows us to kind of scale it because the reality is we don't have field marketing teams necessarily, but we do have field teams and they help support us. So it's more merchandising and operations. And so we work very closely with them. But when there is I would say something that is local activations, but kind of happening at a national scale like Pride, that helps us to scale it. Otherwise, it's those local teams, and they'll come to us and they have ideas, and we help support those ideas as best we can. It's great when it aligns with something that we're already doing, and our field teams really lean into car culture. So they'll come to us and say, like, this store wants to do a car meetup, or they really want to understand more about how to engage that community. We can help provide some of those tools, but it's just working really closely with our field ops teams to be able to do that because we don't have a local marketing team that does it. Yeah, did that answer your question? Okay, yeah.
Hi, Duff Stewart with GSD&M.
Hey.
Hey, how are you? Question for you.
Yeah.
As you put that slide up with social, you had all of those members of the portfolio.
Yeah.
Stripes, Speedway, Laredo Taco.
Yes.
How do you think about those as both individual brands, and how do you look to take advantage of the content that you're creating across those to ultimately deliver to the consumer?
That is my challenge every single day. You just totally nailed it. So 7-Eleven, Speedway, and Stripes are all our convenience store brands. Laredo Taco Company is a QSR concept, and so is Raise the Roost. And then, of course, Slurpee is, our proprietary product. So they kind of fit in different categories. So we kind of think of them that way. So a lot of the in-store activations that we do around these fandoms, we would do at 7-Eleven, Speedway, and Stripes. And then we kind of version them out for those specific stores. So that's really more the shopper piece of it. When we think about brand activations that sit outside of the store, it's going to be more specific to one of those banners. So we may do one activation that's very, very true to the 7-Eleven brand and the 7-Eleven consumer, and then something different for Speedway. And as we evaluate in those criteria, talking about the first one, where do we fit within the fandom, that could be different for 7-Eleven than it is for Speedway. Especially when I think about, car culture for one. 7-Eleven is more of that lifestyle aftermarket. Speedway is probably, I'm not going to say performance, but definitely more of the NASCAR type, consumer. They love NASCAR. And so when those opportunities come for us, we say, great, this aligns so well with our Speedway brand. Let's really lean into it from that perspective. So it's a balance of, trying to figure out what's feasible, what we can do, and what fits best with each of those brands. Sometimes we can do it across all three, and sometimes it's just not going to work. But it is a challenge every single day. So if you come up with a better solution, please let me know. I'd appreciate it.
I know there's some more questions. I can see it on your eyes, in your faces.
If
Are you
not,
sure?
I can
Okay.
also just talk briefly about, because I have one more video in here so we can show it. So typically with sports, we've always thought about football, right? I mean, that's just like it's multi-generational, it's national. It's just kind of a really natural fit to 7-Eleven. But this past year, we started to think about golf. And we actually launched a 7 collection golf collection. It is definitely not country club, because 7-Eleven is not country club. This is more of your muni golf line. But it was a really exciting way to start to kind of tap into another sports fandom, and something that we really tested our way into. We kind of said, well, let's launch this. It's low risk. Let's see what happens. And it was probably some of the biggest pickup we got from a media perspective last year. So it's our convenience tour. I'll just share this real quickly.
You know that I feel good. Doing things I never thought I could. Smiling in the mirror, I look good. Like I should. I feel speaking new. I don't know about you. I feel good. I feel good. I feel good. Like I should. I feel speaking new. I don't know about you. I feel good.
So if you like golf, go to 7collection.com. We will have another golf collection coming out later this year, this summer. But it's, again, it's kind of testing into new fandoms, and it really is part of sports. And so we think of it that way and look for other even emerging sports that we can start to tap into that we know our consumers love. And it's just, again, another way that we're driving relevance with that audience.
And it's great merch.
Great merch. Yeah. So there you go. I think we were in Golf Digest, Hype Beast, BuzzFeed, Esquire, those. So yeah, it was a fun collection. All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Marissa.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Thank you, guys.